Kentucky right now is currently looking at so many transfer portal players, so many different pieces, that I feel confident in Mark Pope and his new staff, which we will discuss very soon once all of the guys are put together on the staff. Him and his staff will be able to go out and get players and fill this roster out. Not just with okay players, but with good, solid, experienced guys. Obviously, we have Travis Perry and Colin Chandler coming in. We don't know what the status of Perry is. We don't know if he's going to decommit. We don't know if he's going to stay. I'd like for him to stay. I think he would do well here. I think the fans would love him. I think he'd be good with Mark Pope. But we don't know what's going to happen. What we do know is Kentucky has reached out to about 4 to 5 different players at every single position in the transfer portal. And I want to briefly talk about them today. And, of course, we'll be monitoring these guys. Most of these guys, if not all of them, we've already talked about on the show. Let's get the rundown by position. And I want you, as we go along here, to just kind of keep in mind which player at each position would you like to have the most. And you can leave it in the comments below and on YouTube if you're watching there at Locked On UK on Twitter as well. Let's start here with point guard. Here are Kentucky's options at point. Javon Small out of Oklahoma State. We've talked about him. He's a good three-point shooter, good pick-and-roll guy, can distribute, can score himself. 6'4". He's actually, if I'm not mistaken, the cousin of Antonio Reeves. Fun little fact there, out of OK State. Very fun player. I liked him at Oklahoma State. There's another Oklahoma State player on this list as well that I think would be interesting. We'll get to him in a little while, but let's start here with point guards. Javon Small. Then Jeremy Roach of Duke. Good three-point shooter, good facilitator, leader, senior, experienced guy. You can tell it in the way that he plays. He knows what he's doing out there, and he hardly makes mistakes. He, as of right now, is apparently a Baylor lean. If he does end up committing to Baylor, he could do it in the middle of this recording. I don't know. But until he does, I'm going to talk about him as at least a potential option. If he ends up telling Baylor no, Kentucky has contacted him. They are interested potentially in him. We'll see where that goes if he does not end up going to Baylor. But as of right now, he's a Baylor lean. Travis Perry coming in as a freshman. He is an option at point guard. Does he decommit? Does he stay? Again, we don't know. David Coit of Northern Illinois, 5'10" guard that can chuck it from deep. It's also really fun to watch getting downhill. Statistically, not the most elite shooter, but above average. He is a formidable opponent on offense. But he's undersized, and I'm just curious to see if Kentucky would want to go with him over a different guy that kind of has more length, that kind of fits the Mark Pope system, so to speak, considering that's kind of been the hot button, the hot buzzword over these past couple of weeks here with Pope. But those are the options at point. And as we get down this list, by the way, as we talk about these players at each position, just know that obviously there are different guys that can be tweeners here, like between small forward and shooting guard or power forward and center. But I'm just going based off of what Ken Pom says was their most popular position a season ago. So those 4 guys played the most at point. At shooting guard, Aidan Mahaney at St. Mary's averaged over 13 points per game. Solid shooter a season ago, or 2 seasons ago, but not this past year. Really good player. Experienced player. Got a guy that has 2 years left in college and has a lot of potential. Mahaney is somebody that I like. Colin Chandler as a freshman, obviously explosive on offense, very aggressive, plays with a lot of energy, a lot of effort, really solid shooter to boot as well. He's going to be somebody that's fun to watch. Jalen Blackmon out of Stetson was a high scorer for the Hatters this past year. I don't know what his status is in the portal right now because Kentucky has almost just broke out with a massive sneeze there. Kentucky has... No, I am going to sneeze. Nope, no, I'm not. Wow, look at us going here on Locked On Kentucky. Kentucky reached out to him before Cal was fired. Apparently, Kentucky is still in contact with all of these guys that haven't committed yet. Don't know what Jalen Blackman's going to do. We'll just have to wait and see. Pop Isaacs of Texas Tech. I just put in my notes here. He can't shoot. He's not a great shooter. And I don't know if that's the option that Kentucky wants to go with, but nevertheless, they've reached out to him. They've not offered him, I don't think. They've just contacted all of these guys, I want to note. At guard/small forward, at the 3 or the 2, Koby Brea out of Dayton, a best shooter in the country last year, probably the best shooter in the country last year, statistically better than Reed Shepherd when it comes to true shooting percentage by just a small margin. Just an elite three-point shooter on the corners and really good on the wings as well. 44% plus on both wings and 50 plus percentage in both corners. Just an excellent player. Had an 86% effective field goal percentage in catch and shoot situations. Just insane. Just an insane player. Andrej Stojakovic out of Stanford, former 5-star prospect, son of Peja Stojakovic, formerly in the NBA, has a very high ceiling. The skill set is there. He's got a slow jumper, but I think he can be developed. There was a reason he was a McDonald's All-American. Statistically, not the most impressive shooter as a freshman, but it's Stanford. It's the Pac-12. It's a 5-star freshman. Give him some time, and I think he could develop. Otega Oweh, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, or Oweh, out of Oklahoma, a 6'5" guard. I also put here can't shoot, shot 25% from three, and I think sub 45% from the floor a season ago as a shooting guard / small forward. I'd be shocked if Kentucky went this direction, but they have offered him. TJ Bomba out of Villianova, who we will discuss here a little bit more at length in just a second. But Bamba out of Nova has a lot of positives. He has a couple of negatives. We'll dive into them in a minute. BJ Freeman out of Milwaukee, Providence lean, tall guard, can shoot the three, can distribute, crafty, getting to the rim, foul drawer, I guess is the word you could say. Chris Parker of Alabama, 4-star, former 4-star, didn't really get a ton of playing time. 6'9" guard. That's what he was coming out of high school. Has a ton of offers from other schools. I don't know if Kentucky's really interested here. At power forward, great Osobor out of Utah State. Just talked about him at length. Cade Tyson, 6'7" forward out of Belmont, shot 46.5% from three, averaged over 16 a game. He's somebody, I don't know his status in the portal, who's interested, but I do know Kentucky would be a fool not to at least take another hard look at him. He was somebody that Cal had offered before he went to Arkansas. Andrew Carr of Wake Forest, respectable outside shooter, comfortable with the ball in his hands, really solid around the rim. But he is not a 5. He is a 4 at 6'10". Aidoo Thiero, ladies and gentlemen, he is still in the cards here potentially. At Pitt, he currently is in the transfer portal, and he has narrowed his list, I should say, down to Pittsburgh, Arkansas, North Carolina, Indiana, and UK. We'll see what happens with Thiero. And then Baba Miller out of Florida State. Don't really know anything about this kid other than that he was a former high-profile prospect. At center, I think his statistics and his development are two completely separate things. I don't know if he would be able to replicate some of the stats that he had. I don't think he would be an outside shooter, even though he did get to toss a couple of threes up at FSU. And then you get to the forward / center position. Amari Williams out of Drexel. Brandon Garrison out of Oklahoma State, who is currently on a visit to Texas. We talked about him, I believe, on yesterday's show. Former McDonald's All-American, high-profile prospect. I really liked some of the things that I saw at Garrison in his first year at OSU. Heading into his sophomore year now, by the way. Just a fun player. I like his effort. I like his energy. Really, really good in the pick and roll with Javon Small. Maybe if both of those guys came here, they'd be fun to watch. Jonas Aidoo out of Tennessee. We'll talk about him in a second. 4th year or 5th year guy coming out of Tennessee. The development on him is fascinating. We'll discuss that in a second. And then Cliff Amari out of Rutgers. We talked about him early in the transfer portal cycle. He is currently an Alabama lean, if I'm not mistaken. That's every single player that Kentucky either has committed, freshman portal, no portal commitments yet, just a note, or has contacted in the transfer portal that is not committed to another school. That's all of them, unless I am just missing a couple of stray guys or somebody's been offered while I'm recording this and I just don't know it yet. So let me know, what's your favorite player at every single position? Which players do you want? Which players do you not want? Which players do you think would fit well with Pope? Which players do you think aren't necessarily great fits but could do well anyway? You can leave all of that in the comments below or hit me on the socials at LockedOnUK. Okay, we've got 2 players I want to talk about here to close out the show, TJ Bomba and Jonas Aidoo. Let's talk about them at length, their development, their skill sets. Just a moment. Before we do that, though, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at Game Time. There have been occasions where I've wanted to go to a Major League Baseball game, a college football game, and I've tried to go get last-minute tickets. It's been extremely frustrating to try and go to do, very stressful if you were trying to get some last-minute tickets. But there is one place that you need to go to get any kind of tickets last minute, a week in advance. Regardless, Game Time is your place to go, especially if you're looking for baseball tickets as the season has just begun. Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of MLB, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. And prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. They've got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. They take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. You can download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. You can download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, wrapping up the Friday edition of Locked On Kentucky. Lance Dawe hanging out here with you. Really appreciate you guys checking out the show today. Again, if you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel, would greatly appreciate it if you went ahead and did so. Trying to get past 10,000 subscribers. We are getting so close. I would greatly appreciate it if you guys subbed. And let's wrap up the show here talking about a couple of different transfer portal pieces. We talked about TJ Bomba, talked about Jonas Aidoo. We discussed how both of them have had very interesting careers so far. Jonas Aidoo, I think, more so than Bamba. But let's talk about both of these guys who were contacted by Kentucky today. Bamba, out of Villianova this past season, averaged 10.1 points while shooting 43% from the floor, 37% from three, averaging 3.5 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, and 0.3 blocks per game. 10.1 points in his one and only year at Villanova. His 3 previous years were spent at Washington State, where he went from 4.2 points to 7.7 points to 15.8 points in his junior year, shooting 37% from three. Really solid scorer. Overall, listed at 6'5", 210 pounds, 2 Power 6 schools, almost averaged 16 a game at one of them, averaged 10 at another. I think TJ Bomba would be a solid player. I've seen a couple of you on Twitter already say you don't want him. Let's dive into the stats. Let's talk about the positives and the negatives. Bamba shot 51% at the rim, 45% of his field goal attempts. That's pretty good. It's not elite, but it's good. He is a big-bodied guard that is not afraid to initiate contact and take it to the hole, whether that be in transition or whether that be in the half court. If you give him a crease, he's going to go downhill. 30% on left break threes, that's not good. 33% on right break threes, that's also not good. Not a phenomenal three-point shooter on the wings, but in the corners, he's really good. Shot 54% on left corner threes. That was 10% of his field goal attempts. That is just, quite frankly, elite. That is really, really good in the corner. He has a 14% assist rate, which is pretty average. And then here's the thing. This is where you get the good and the bad with TJ Bomba. He shoots 64% effective field goal percentage on catch and shoot shots. That is 94th percentile in the country, and that is really, really good, especially at 6'5" as a guard. If you can put him in catch and shoot situations and he can knock them down, that's fun. That's really, really good. However, at the same time, he has a 19% effective field goal percentage off the dribble. That is the worst I have seen doing these transfer portal breakdowns. 19% effective field goal percentage. I mean, technically, his field goal percentage is actually lower than 19%. This is effective, not just normal. So he's excellent, like really good in catch and shoot. But if you ask this guy to cook, he is going to burn the food. Great spot up, great catch and shoot. Do not let him cook otherwise. This would be an off-ball player. Somebody that would work really well with somebody like Osobor or somebody like Williams, who is distributing the basketball for catch and shoot situations or spot up situations. Bamba, good scorer. Not elite, but good. Big-bodied, physical, statistically not a bad shooter unless you ask him to create off the dribble, in which case he is horrendous. Just point blank. If you get him in catch and shoot, he's one of the best shooters in the country. So we'll keep an eye on TJ. He's been offered by Kentucky alongside a ton of other teams. I think Memphis is somebody that he could be interested in. We'll see what happens here. And then to wrap up the show, Jonas Aidoo out of Tennessee. This is a fascinating story for me. And Jonas Aidoo. So Aidoo has played 3 years at Tennessee. It feels like 7. It feels like he's been there forever. In his freshman year in 2021, he averaged 2.1 points. Then 5.1 points 2 seasons ago. On pretty average statistics, he shot 32% in his first year as a 6'11 center, which is just putrid. He shot 51% as a sophomore, which is okay, but it's not great. And then in his past year, 11.4 points, 7.3 rebounds, almost 2 blocks a game, an assist per game, shooting 52% from the floor. Those are all, rounded out, good numbers. 6'11", 240-pound junior, developed. He went from bad to really good as a starting center at Tennessee, former 4-star prospect. He's been around the college game. He is physical. He's a good rim protector, and he's getting better. Take a look at some more of these stats with me. He shot 61% at the rim. It's where he takes most of his shots. That's good. He shot 42% on right elbow jumpers or right side jumpers. That's actually pretty good. He shot 40% on left baseline. That's not great, but it's okay. It's serviceable. He had an 8.8% block rate, which is one of the best in the nation. It's top 40 in the nation. He had a 13.3% offensive rebound rate, so he blocks shots. He grabs boards. Both those numbers are very good. The only thing, similar to Bamba, don't let this man cook. He shot 39% effective field goal percentage in catch-and-shoot situations. Do not give this guy the ball more than just a few feet outside of the basket. He is really good around the rim, but outside of that, he's not going to find a ton of success. Good pick-and-roll man. Really solid pick-and-roll man. Somebody that could probably slip to the basket and be more effective than he has at Tennessee at that with Kentucky. Does not have a versatile skill set. In his first couple of years, I remember watching Aidoo, and this is not a slight at him because, again, he significantly took a significant step forward this past season. I remember watching him and just going, he's just sort of there as a 6'11", 235, 240-pound big man. He's just kind of there. He's not really doing anything that bothers you, but he's also not really doing anything that, like, really hurts the team for Tennessee. And then this past year, it's like, oh, okay, you put him in a starting role, the man makes an impact. You understand where it's coming from, the rebounds, the blocks, the pick-and-roll excellence. Really solid at the rim. He can hit a jumper as well if you leave him open. I like him. Does he fit Pope's system very well as far as 5 out, distributing the basketball as a 5, being able to handle a little bit, having vision? No, he just straight up doesn't. But that doesn't mean he wouldn't be a good player. He wouldn't be a good rim protector for Kentucky, and in what I would assume to be a backup role if Kentucky does what they want to do with Amari Williams. I'm not sure, but Aidoo is a prospect that Kentucky's reached out to that has potential to be really good in the senior season. I'd take a look at him. And see what happens here. So those are all the transfer portal prospects I have for you today. We're going to talk a ton, of course, next week about Kentucky's endeavors in the portal, about whether or not they pick up Osobor or Williams, or if they don't get them both, obviously we'll have things to say about that. So make sure you're subscribed, whether that be on the podcast feed or on the YouTube channel.